Hello, today I'm going to show you GeoSwords. It's a new free product that I'm launching on Blender Market. Why it's free? Because one of the first things I've ever wanted to create in 3D way back, 20 plus years ago, I was using Lightwave. If you don't know what Lightwave is, that just shows how old I am. And I just love making swords. And I thought when I was getting into geometry nodes with Blender, I always wanted to make some swords with it. So here you go, some cool looking swords. And yeah, let's get into it. So you can see that I have my GeoSwords asset pack selected, and now I can go into any scene that I want. I have this scene set up with some lights. So we're just going to go ahead and turn off those lights so we don't see them. And then we're just going to drag out one of the assets. We're going to center it to 0 so we can see it, orbit around it. So this is one of them. So there are 4 presets. Some of them have similar kind of nodes to them, and then they're all different in some way. So let's just kind of dive into these nodes and what they do. So you can see over here on my modifier stack, we have 6 different modifiers. And if I just go ahead and hide those from bottom to top, you can see that the first one is the blade. And the next one is the blade deformer. It's not applied to this, so you won't see the effect yet. But we'll play around with that soon. We have the blade finish, which is like the blade material. And then we have the cross guard or handle. And then we've got the crossguard finish and the handle finish. So I have this set up in a way so you kind of can focus on one thing and then move to the other. So let's dive in to see what the blade does. So we're just going to hit this arrow so we can expand it. And now if you see, we have some parameters to mess with. So you can play around with the width, the thickness of the blade, the length of it. So if you wanted to make this a very long sword, you could. We'll just keep that as a dagger for now. Point height, so the length is basically from the base to a certain point, and the point height is how much the point actually is. So I know it's kind of hard to see, but in order to get a point how I wanted it to, I had to separate the values. So yeah. So these next set of parameters here, I'm actually going to hop over to geometry nodes setup, and we're going to see what that looks like. Okay, so this is a top-down view of what the kind of the shape of the blade looks like. So this is a single-sided blade, so it's flat on one end and sharp on the other. So these different things here will adjust certain parameters of the blade type. We got our fuller, which is kind of like that middle ribbing part. Basically, a 0 value is 0, and then a 1 value is whatever the width equals. So we've got that there, and then we've got our position here. So lots of things to adjust to get your blade just how you want it. So we're just going to hop back over to the other view and see how it affects the blade as a whole. Okay, so let's play around with some of these now that we kind of see what it did. So we're adjusting the thickness of this area. We've got our bevel. So if you go above a certain value, it can kind of break it. So just kind of keep it within parameters because it's based off of relative values of the other values. So you got that. And then we have our tapering. So if we want to taper it on the bottom, we can do that. If we want to taper it up top, we can do that. So lots of different variety. I'm actually going to turn this off. So this deform value, we'll get into that real soon. But that will help us just kind of see this taper. So you can taper on the Y as well. So if you wanted it to be thinner or thicker only on the Y, you can do that. So if you really want a really thick sword up top, you could do that. It doesn't really look like a sword anymore. It kind of looks cool, but not a sword. Okay, so we're going to turn this deform back on and then see what it does. So the deform is actually deforming the whole blade as a whole. It's kind of using kind of a vase method of doing it. So let's just go over to geometry nodes real quick, and let's see how we can manipulate that. So we're going to go over to the curve profile. So these are kind of like preset curve profiles that I did. You can change these however you want. You can see that we're on profile set 2. And if we go down here and we see profile set 2, we can do that. And I think I have like 8 profile sets, so you can modify them however you want. So you can tab into it and change the profile. So let's go to profile 4 right on the dot. And if we go down to profile 4, we can start to mess with these, and we can see that it is changing the shape of the profile. So yeah, that's kind of cool. What you can do, you can just kind of slide along them, and it's going to basically interpolate between all the different curves. And you can change the set right here, and then you can just do this kind of this grow thing. So it's just kind of growing from the base. And then the alignment is basically where it sits in relation to the 0, 0, 0 axis. So yeah, that's that. So let's just kind of undo some of those changes back to the blade that we want to edit, which is this. Let's go back to this view. Okay, so the next thing we have is the blade deform. So this is currently turned off for this one, but if you turn this up to 1, you'll see it actually deforming the entire blade. So it's not just kind of like the general shape of the blade itself, but the entire metal piece. So yes, very similar to the other deform method. So you can change the profile and you can invert it if you want. Just be careful with some of the things. It looks like it's glitching out on this inversion, so well, let's not do that. And then you can adjust the bend as well, so you can bend your blade however you want. So some cool things you can do with that. Let's just get it back to where we want it. Okay, so let's go to the blade finish. So this is relatively simple. Leave the ID alone. It's basically looking at the idea of the mesh to apply this material. So just don't really mess with that much unless you want to get into advanced tactics. So if we change the subdivisions, or subdivisions, you'll add geometry to the blade. Edge crease, so that's basically if you add subdivisions, how much the edge is going to crease and how it's going to be smooth. So we'll just leave that at 0 for now. The material, so you can change this to whatever material you want. To do that, just add a material to your scene, go to this material, and then select whatever. And then you have shade smooth, so whether you want the object to look nice and shiny. And then you have this edge mask. So this is talking to the material itself. You can see on the output attributes, I have these two things here. If you don't want this to do blade mask or edge mask, you can just delete these. Just remove them. And you can see that the kind of those edge effects go away. So we'll just bring those back in. And then you just kind of play around with these two sliders and get the result that you want. So it's basically looking at edge angle and applying a different material to it. If you go over to the material stack right here, we're under the blade. We can see A and B, so we can change this to whatever we wanted to. Or you can add your own material, like I said before. The next one is this crossguard handle. So let's see what we can do with this. So we have the general crossguard size, so it's just looking at kind of the base of the crossguard, and then the other attributes adjust other parameters of it. So you can play around with those. We're not going to get into every little thing. You can just kind of mess to see what you can create. Some interesting shapes here. Extend the end. Fall off. Whoa, I can get crazy real quick. So yeah, just kind of be cautious of what you do, and you can bend it inwards like this. The handle thickness. All right, so it goes like that. And we have the deform here, so we can, choose to deform this. And same with the other as well. You can change the profile. And you can flatten it as well. So if you wanted it to get flat on the edge, on the x-axis, you can do that. Actually, it's the y. Perfect. Okay, and then we have the crossguard finish and the other finish as well. So let's just jump into another sword real quick so you can see how that is. Let's grab, so I guess do Excalibur. So we're just gonna make this 0, 0, 0. Okay, so we have Excalibur. So this may or may not look like the Excalibur you remember, but it is the one that I made. So yeah, so you can see that this is a slightly different blade. This is a double-edged blade versus a single edge. So these attributes here will adjust accordingly. Just play around with them to get what you want. Yeah, lots of fun things to play around with. We have the taper and the deform as well. So this one currently has a deform that kind of bends it inward, which is kind of cool looking. But if we wanted it to be thicker, we could do that. And then let's see. I think the main difference with this one is how the grip and the crossguard and the pommel are all kind of separate pieces. So you can kind of change, you know, different parts of the crossguard here. Bend it in different directions. So yeah, play around with these, get some interesting, cool results. We've got the grip. So the grip is very similar to the crossguard. You can just twist and pull certain parts of it. So yeah, lots of parameters. I'm not going to go through them. I'm sure you'll have fun messing around with them. Then we got the pommel. So the pommel we can make however we want. A very large pommel. You can knock someone over the head of that if your blade breaks in battle. So yeah, lots of things to mess around and kind of see what works for you. Okay, so that's what we're going to cover today. Maybe I'll have a more in-depth video in the future. If you do have your object selected and you want to you created a cool base mesh and you want to do more to it, what you can do, you can just, you know, search for convert to curve, or you can find this in the object menu. So I want to convert to mesh, not to curve. So if I do that, then all of my geometry is now editable and I can do what I want with it. So there you have it, a kind of quick introduction and quick overview of GeoSwords, but this is very exciting. I'm happy to share this with the community.